ask everyone to please mute their audio when you're not speaking. And as you saw, we're recording this session. If you could only use one source of audio and try not to put your phone on hold to not just interrupt the meeting. The meeting chats will be saved at the end of each session. Please be respectful of all the other attendees, and thank you guys for following these guidelines. So on October 13th, last week, we hosted an informational meeting to discuss how the two maps, the Charlotte Future 2040 policy map and the Charlotte street map, will inform future growth, development, and mobility around the city of Charlotte. We're going to be dropping a meeting or a link in the chat of that meeting in case you haven't had a chance to watch it yet. But in today's meeting, we'll be providing a brief overview of what was covered in that meeting, including the purpose of the policy map and the streets map and how the two maps relate to each other. The majority of today's meeting, though, will be a community conversation around the Charlotte Future 2040 policy map. We want to provide an up-close look at how the policy map recommendations were developed within this geography. And then we want to talk about how we might revise the citywide mapping approach to make it more accurate and better aligned with the comprehensive plan. So with that, we're going to review some basic information. So what is the purpose of the Charlotte Future 2040 policy map and the Charlotte streets map? The purpose of these two maps is to help implement the vision of the Charlotte Future 2040 comprehensive plan, which is the guiding document for our city's growth and development over the next 20 years. The comprehensive plan was adopted in June of this year, and there are now several major initiatives underway to help put that plan into action. The policy map will identify appropriate locations for future development in our neighborhoods, and the streets map will define the multimodal vision for Charlotte streets to support mobility between the places where we live, work, and play. And the Unified Development Ordinance will consolidate and update the city's land development regulations so future development is aligned with the vision of the comprehensive plan. A draft of the UDO was released on October 7th, and more information about this initiative can be found at cltgov.me/CLT Future. The Charlotte Future 2040 policy map and the Charlotte streets map will both help implement the vision of the comprehensive plan, and they'll accomplish this by informing how our built environment evolves and changes over time. The built environment includes both land use and transportation related characteristics. So each map provides supporting information about the places that we want to create. The Charlotte Future 2040 policy map will inform the type of development that's appropriate to occur in specific geographies throughout the community. And again, it'll inform the types of land uses and building form that's appropriate. And the Charlotte streets map will define the future cross section for arterial streets, including the future curb line location and streetscape requirements. So with an understanding that both maps are intended to help implement the vision of the comprehensive plan, and that they'll both help inform the city's built environment over time, let's take a closer look at the Charlotte street map and the Charlotte Future 2040 policy map. Before going into details on the streets map, it's helpful to briefly consider what a street actually is. A street looks, feels, and functions the way it does based on all of the pieces that are located from building front to building front. The policy map deals with the land uses and the buildings along the street. And the streets map focuses on the portion of the space that provides for mobility. You can see in this diagram how the various components of the street work together to serve all the users. So now that we looked at what a street is, let's take a closer look at what the streets map is. It's the mapped vision for our multimodal street network, and it's based on council adopted policies that have been developed and refined over the last several years. It shows the recommended cross-section for all of Charlotte's arterial streets and will support the UDO to help ensure that we're providing for multimodal streets as we grow and develop. Now that we have the streets map, the streets around the blue line were mapped and adopted in 2019, and the map remains in place, but will be ultimately folded into the citywide maps as shown here. You can go online to review and provide comments on the streets map and the policy map now through November 14th. And it's probably the best way for you to really dig deep and look onto like specific locations that interest you in Charlotte. When you click on an arterial street, there will be a pop-up box that includes information about street cross sections that you can review. Then you can then make comments on the streets map by clicking on the green icon, the street you're interested in, and then that'll bring up a comment box where you can get full instructions for how to make comments. So moving on to the Charlotte Future 2040 policy map. This is the companion document to the Charlotte Future 2040 comprehensive plan, and it'll translate the plan's place-based policies to specific geographies in the community. Place-based policies are those that provide guidance for where and how development should occur. For example, the plan recommends providing higher density housing along major thoroughfares and transit lines so we can align future density with our transportation infrastructure. This mapping effort will identify where there are opportunities to realize that goal throughout the community. When adopted, the Charlotte Future 2040 policy map will replace the city's current land use, city's current policy map called the Future Land Use Map. The Charlotte Future 2040 policy map provides a comprehensive and citywide direction for how Charlotte will balance both the needs and opportunities that come with future growth. For example, the map will ensure our city can accommodate its projected growth while also protecting features that are important to residents, such as the natural environment and established neighborhoods. The mapping effort will also ensure we align future growth with infrastructure capacity so we can grow smartly and maximize our resources. And finally, the policy map's citywide direction means we can ensure historically underserved areas are guaranteed better access in the future and Charlotte becomes a more equitable city. Since the objective of this mapping effort is to evaluate and balance citywide needs and opportunities, the Charlotte Future 2040 policy map will not provide parcel specific or block by block analysis that has historically occurred during the small area planning process. So the Charlotte Future 2040 policy map was developed using a new tool called place types and followed a 3-step process. Place types are a new classification system to organize patterns of development. They're not zoning districts. They're more complete and holistic than the city's current classification system called the Future Land Use. Future land use only provides guidance for the type of development, so residential, commercial, or institutional, permitted on a property. Occasionally, future land use can provide guidance on the level of density, low, medium, or high permitted. In comparison, place types provides guidance for the mix and proportions of land use, building form and design, mobility, and open space. The place types tool was vetted by the community during the development of the comprehensive plan. Stakeholders provided input on the types of places right for Charlotte, as well as the guidance for each place type. The 2040 policy map process will now apply the place types vetted during plan development to specific geographies throughout the community. So using the new place types tool, the draft Charlotte Future 2040 policy map was developed following 3 steps. The first step was to translate the existing development on the ground into the new place type tool. This step was completed to illustrate how the place types are intended to be applied at about a half block or block level and is for reference only. This step did not inform the Charlotte Future 2040 policy map. The second step was to translate the city's adopted area plans into place types. This step illustrates how Charlotte would grow if we did nothing different and did not map the comprehensive plan policies. The third step built upon the adopted policies map and revised the map to reflect the Charlotte Future 2040 comprehensive plan policies. By building off of the adopted policy map, this process doesn't erase past planning efforts that are still valuable to the community. Instead, it respects what's working for our community and only revises the shortcomings that fail to address the city's current and future needs. So here you can see our place types palette that was developed in the comprehensive plan process. There's 3 place types in the live category. So parks and preserves, neighborhood 1, and neighborhood 2. Then there's in the work category, there's commercial, campus, innovation, mixed use, and manufacturing and logistics. And then for play, we have neighborhood center, community activity center, and regional activity center. And so here they are again. So there were several data inputs used in each of the 3 mapping steps. We'll focus on the inputs for the adopted policies and Charlotte Future 2040 policy map, since these 2 steps inform today's draft map. The major inputs for the adopted policies map included future land use recommendations from area plans adopted since 2010. This guidance accounts for approximately 27% of our land area. For the remaining portions of the city, the adopted policy map was informed by the zoning and existing entitlements of a property. In instances where the existing zoning district did not clearly translate into a place type, market support analysis was used to identify what was the most realistic future use of the property. As mentioned, the draft Charlotte Future 2040 policy map built upon the adopted policies map by revising this map to reflect the new direction of the comprehensive plan. The major inputs used to revise the second map and produce a 2040 map include the equitable growth framework and preservation policies. And then the draft recommendations were checked against several other data sources, such as our growth projections, environment, and infrastructure capacity, and market realities. So with that, we'd like to walk through how the process played out in the Southwest Outer Community Planning area. So our phase 2 community conversations are organized around 15 community planning areas, and today's meeting is about this Southwest community planning area, as you can see here on this map. And it's generally bounded by the state line, Lake Wiley, Dixie River Road, and just north of Westinghouse Boulevard. So as mentioned, the mapping approach began by translating what's on the ground today and what future place types would look like without the comprehensive plan. So here we have the existing place types map. So this map reflects what's on the ground today. It's based on existing land use data and development patterns. So as you can see, we have a lot of purple, which is manufacturing and logistics. We have a lot of neighborhood 1, and we have significant parks and preserves. So the second step in the mapping process, the mapping approach, as I mentioned, was to adapt to translate the city's adopted policies and existing entitlements into place types. So this translation was based on several inputs, future land use recommendations for areas that have area plans adopted since 2010 and zoning in the remaining areas. In some instances, there wasn't a clear translation between the existing zoning and a future place type assignment. So with those instances, we used market analysis to determine which place type assignment was most realistic from a market perspective. You can see how the place type assignments change between the existing development and adopted policies map on the right side. So you can see neighborhood 2 went down significantly, some parks and preserves went down, commercial, and some campus. I will note that in our call earlier this afternoon for this geography, one of the comments that we received was that there's a lot of areas that are mapped in green for parks and preserves, sort of on the edge of Lake Wiley. And so we realized that those are actually the areas that are water. So that's an area that we need to go in and adjust in our next map. So I'll go back here. So you can look at the difference. So now we'd like to walk through how place types were revised on the adopted policies map to better align with the vision of the community and the comprehensive plan. First, we'll look at the mapping of the preservation policies. So the comprehensive plan includes policies to preserve existing neighborhood 1, parks and preserves, and manufacturing and logistics. You can see those 3 place types on this map. In some areas, these place types were already preserved based on adopted policies. The areas in blue show additional areas where these place types were preserved as part of this step. You can see the % change in these place type assignments on the right side. So before we start talking about potential changes to the current approach, we'd like to ask some questions about what you've seen reflected in the draft as of now. So we think a number of the steps described in the current mapping approach are accomplishing the goals of the comprehensive plan, but want to hear whether or not you agree. So we're going to launch our first poll to see if you agree with the statement. So the mapping step to preserve neighborhood 1 and parks and preserves aligns with the Charlotte Future 2040 comprehensive plan's direction to protect community assets. So we have 1 strongly agree. And then we have 1 neutral. All right.
Maria, before we move on, we do have 1 question in the chat. Says,
okay.
Did not map the ETJ, and we're showing Four Horse Park as a park, but it's 1.
I'm sorry. Can you say that again? I couldn't hear.
The first is a comment that we did not map the ETJ, and then the second is a sort of a question comment, I guess, and it's stating that we show the end of Four Horse Park as park, but it's neighborhood 1.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, we'll thank you guys for those observations. We'll make sure we look at those for the draft. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you super well, Gretchen. Was there a question at the in there? I heard the statements, but
it didn't seem like it was an implicit question.
Yeah,
okay.
Gretchen, your microphone's a little bit fuzzy. Both are just comments that we'll need to pass to the staff. So
okay, thank you.
Those for the draft.
Okay, great, cool, thank you. Yeah, we'll thank you for that feedback. We'll take it back and we'll share it with our team and see how we can look at those pieces. So get back on the screen. So next we're going to look at mapping the mapping of access to housing opportunities. So neighborhood 2 is a place type that helps provide more housing opportunities through housing unit diversity. Here you can see in orange where neighborhood 2 is mapped. In some areas, neighborhood 2 was already mapped based on adopted policies. And so the areas highlighted in blue show the additional areas where neighborhood 2 was recommended as part of this step. So here you can see the first 4 place types combined on the policy map. Sorry. So we have another question that we'd like to ask. So we think a number of steps described in the mapping approach are accomplishing the goals, and we want to hear if you agree or not. So our second question is mapping more neighborhood 2 in areas with low access to housing opportunity is a good approach to increasing housing diversity in the future. So you can see if you agree, disagree. Okay, so we're split there. So we have 1 agree and 1 disagree. If anyone wants to speak up or throw comments in the chat to elaborate on that, feel free to do that. No, we
Please
will.
go, please go back to the last map.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. My doorbell rang and so my dog just went crazy. Let me try to go back here. So this is the map that you wanted to go to, Carla?
Yes, and we'll go to the one that shows the orange, because you said orange and blue and there wasn't any orange and blue when you said it. So if you go 3 slides forward, you'll see where the orange was added. No, not existing.
Let's see.
Okay, from this one to the next one. Okay, so
There we go. Okay. Mhm.
look at the orange south of McDowell Park. You've put orange on top of a high school that's under construction.
Okay.
That's not orange. Similarly, on Highway 160 at the state line, you have a sliver at the state line, and then you have a rectangle. That rectangle is also an elementary school site, not under construction and not funded, already owned by Park of the schools.
Okay.
I noted on the map that it's shifted. It's 3 parcels and a vacant parcel, and you put it over the wrong 3 parcels. The school owns 3 parcels, so you'll need to look at that. But I'm going to suggest that you're not showing enough neighborhood 2 because you have it on parcels that are inadequate.
Okay, thank you for those comments. We'll take a look at those and see. Thank you.
And then is there a reason at the intersection of 160 and 49 that what we would all call shopping center, activity center, there is in NE2 type housing in that corner, but you're not calling it NE2. I assume you're going to call it activity center, but the northwest corner is primarily, except for the Harris Teeter, it's primarily apartments.
Okay. Okay.
So looking at those 4 those 4 corners, there is existing NE2 development. Thank you.
Okay. And okay, great. Yeah, that's helpful. As we move forward, we'll see other commercial areas brought into this map as well. Yeah, thank you for those comments. So the next thing that we're going to look at is access to employment opportunity policies. And this is the second component of the equitable growth framework. So on this map, areas outside of the black diagonal hatches are lacking existing access to employment opportunity. The bullet points on this page are the metrics that were used to better understand where access is currently lacking. The place type mapping aimed to provide the opportunity for employment within a commute shed, so 1.5 miles, within 1.5 miles of every neighborhood. So the items that aren't underlined can happen within any employment area, and therefore there are other tools outside of place type that will be explored to help address those gaps. So campus and innovation mixed use are 2 place types that can help provide more employment opportunities within close proximity to neighborhoods. Here you can see in teal and light pink where those 2 place types are mapped. In some areas, these place types were already mapped based on adopted policies. The areas highlighted in blue show additional areas where these place types were recommended as part of the step in the mapping effort.
Can you confirm there are no pink or blue on this map, or is it just me?
Yeah, let me go back to that one.
I'll say it's teal or pink.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. So there is no changes in these 2 in this area.
Thank you.
You're right. Thanks for catching that. And so here you can see all of those areas mapped here. And so our next question is about access to jobs. and again, it doesn't look like it applies to this area, but is mapping campus, in general for the overall approach to the city, is mapping campus and innovation mixed use in areas with low access to jobs a good approach to increasing housing access in the future? So we agree and neutral. Thank you all for that feedback. Feel free, if you have any comments you want to share on that, feel free to speak up. So next, we're going to look at mapping of access to essential amenities, goods, and services. And this is the third component of the equitable growth framework. So on this map, areas outside of the black diagonal hatches are lacking existing access to essential amenities, goods, and services. The bullet points on this page are the metrics that were used to understand where the access is currently lacking. The underlying metrics were specifically identified as items place type mapping could help address, and the ones that aren't underlined can be provided in any place type, and therefore other tools outside of place types will be explored to help address these gaps. So commercial and activity centers are place types that can help provide more access to amenities. Here you can see in red, pink, and blue, red, pink, blue, and navy, where these 4 place types were mapped. In some areas, these place types were already mapped based on adopted policies, and the areas highlighted in blue will be the ones that show where additional areas where these place types were recommended as part of this step. So we can see here that, I'm sorry?
And you'll note that you show a teal border that appeared, I have nothing in teal border, so meaning nothing was added during the 2040 policy mapping.
So there's a few here. So there's some neighborhood center that was mapped, and it looks like commercial went down and community activity center went down. So yeah, so again, there wasn't a lot of change there. And so, 1 second, I think I lost my. Sorry, here we go. Okay, so the next poll question that we're going to ask is mapping activity centers in areas with low access to goods and services a good approach to increasing access to goods and services in the future? And again, even though,
sorry, Maria, we're having Zoom's been having some issues with its polls, so I'm going to paste this one into the chat, and that was the goods and services one.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm going to paste that into the chat, and then everyone is welcome to reply there, or if you want to do that verbally as well.
Thanks, Maddie.
Absolutely.
And so I'll keep going, but feel free to speak up or again, comment in the chat. So the last component of the equitable growth framework is environmental justice. So on the map, the areas outside of the black diagonal hatches are the areas that are impacted by environmental justice issues. So the bullet points on this page are the metrics that were used to understand where environmental justice is currently lacking. No more intense place types were mapped. So no new, more intense place types were not mapped within the floodplain. The place type mapping effort also used buffering and transitions to reduce the proximity between neighborhoods and heavy industrial uses or major transportation infrastructure. Opportunities to provide buffering or transitions are limited based on existing development. So other tools outside of place types will need to be explored to help address some of those inequities where they exist. And so our last question for our current approach is how important is it to explore additional tools to further mitigate environmental justice impacts during the community planning area process? And so again, you can just look at that and then drop your thoughts on that in the chat or speak up.
I will be sending that right now.
And so next we want to highlight what the above mentioned place type recommendations mean for this area in terms of attracting new housing units and future jobs. In terms of housing units, the place type recommendations within this geography will account for approximately 11,118 of those new housing units. And so that number is approximately 8% of all new units projected for the whole city by 2040. In terms of jobs, place type recommendations within this geography will account for approximately 13,670 of new jobs. This number of jobs is approximately 7% of all new jobs projected for the city by 2040. So now that we've walked through the policy map recommendations for this area, we'd like to get your feedback on our draft mapping approach. So the objective of this conversation is to collect feedback on both the current steps in the mapping approach, as well as potential revisions to the approach. So there are two types of feedback that we can use to revise the mapping approach. We can identify additional steps to add to the mapping approach, which would help better align the final map with the final Charlotte Future 2040 policy map. And we can discuss potential adjustments to the current mapping steps that would help improve the accuracy of the map. And I mentioned this process is not incorporating parcel specific revisions that don't inform overall changes to a citywide mapping approach. It's a citywide mapping effort that must balance future needs and opportunities. So now that we've gotten some of your answers on those questions on our approach so far, we're going to turn to what's missing from our approach. So we recognize that the current mapping approach is just a starting point, and we may need to add some additional steps to better align with the comprehensive plan. And so we want to share a few suggestions for additional steps with you all and see whether you or not you agree. The additional steps that we've heard from from our interdepartmental stakeholders are related to the first three of the 10 place types. So first, we're going to look at what we've heard about manufacturing and logistics. We've heard from our partners in economic development that some of the existing manufacturing and logistics sites, especially those close to uptown, might be better suited for other uses due to the changing needs of the manufacturing industry. So our question to you all is it important to preserve existing manufacturing and logistics sites or to consider where repurposing these areas may better serve our community needs in the future?
I just put that in the chat, and while everyone is taking a moment to answer, Maria, we did get another question.
Okay.
Mark asks, how was the map designed with what's over the South Carolina line? Even though we do not control South Carolina, what's on their radar may affect negatively or positively our plans.
That's a good point. I think we've had another question like that, similar on a neighboring county in one of our previous calls. And I think we said that that's something that we're going to have to consider. That's a great comment that we just have to consider as we move this forward. Because I'm not aware of any conversation. Although Gretchen, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, but
yeah, I don't know if my mic is any better now.
That's better.
Okay, good. So you're right in that we don't technically have any jurisdiction over South Carolina, so our map doesn't extend that way. But we have had some, that we've had, if you're talking about manufacturing logistics specifically, we have a study that's being done. And I know that there's information in there about neighboring counties. I'm not sure if they include South Carolina, but I know that they have included some information on what's going on in Ferris County in terms of the growth capacity. for expanding manufacturing.
Thanks, Gretchen. So yeah, Mark, we'll take that in and then try to consider that, and we'll take that back to our team. So our next question is about neighborhood 2. So there are a lot of large single family lots located along major transportation corridors throughout our city. These sites could evolve to neighborhood 2 to provide more housing options in the future. Is it more important? And so the question that we have for you is it more important to preserve existing single family lots or provide more housing options along major corridors? And I think Maddie's going to drop that in the chat.
Yep, that's in there now.
Great, thank you.
And if anybody does not feel comfortable answering to the group, please feel free to message me directly.
Thanks for your response, Mark. Oh, and thank you, Carla. I'm just seeing your comment now about the amount of undeveloped land in this area and the 8% projection. Thanks for sharing that with us. Okay, so our final question is about commercial, the commercial place type. So we've heard from some of our planning colleagues that a lot of the existing commercial development throughout Charlotte doesn't align with the comprehensive plan's vision for walkable integrated or more walkable integrated communities. So how important is it to you that commercial places in the community planning area evolve into neighborhood activity centers?
And that question is now in the chat.
Maria, could you further clarify that sentence? Because having read the UDO, I think a neighborhood activity center is not just walkable, it has housing or something in it. Am I correct?
Yeah, so a neighborhood activity center is going to have a more of a mix of uses than just straight commercial, and it's going to be more walkable and a little bit of a smaller scale. So it's going to be more pedestrian oriented and have more of a mix of uses than just commercial. So it might be apartments mixed with retail, office, or smaller office, or smaller retail. I hope it helps.
It does. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, and so some of the conditions that we could prioritize, so Mark says it's very important. So some of the conditions that we could prioritize where commercial areas might transition to neighborhood activity center. So think about a commercial area that's surrounded by neighborhood 1 or neighborhood 2, then it would make sense to make for that commercial area to become neighborhood activity center that's surrounded by neighborhoods. Also commercial areas in close proximity to parks and preserves, or commercial areas along more local streets. Okay, so finally, we're going to talk about any concerns that you have with the draft map, specifically in this area. So by talking through specific concerns, we'll be able to identify adjustments to the mapping approach to help make the next draft more accurate. So to do this, we are going to, so actually, go back here. So we can talk about what adjustments should be made to our approach. So a couple of examples of adjustments are if a certain site isn't showing up as the expected place types, it might be too small of a site to qualify as a separate place. So in some of those cases, it might have been absorbed into the surrounding place type. So we can adjust those place type thresholds if there's enough examples of that identified scenario. If a certain site isn't showing up as expected, the expected place types, it might be that the existing entitlements weren't translated properly. And so there also might be some potential zoning errors that you identify. So if you catch any of those, we can document those and review so that we can make sure that we make the appropriate revisions. Okay, so now to do this exercise, we're going to do a mapping exercise on Zoom. Since we can't sit around a table and point to a map, we're going to be using Zoom's annotated feature. To open the annotated feature, you should be able to go on your screen and it's either at the top, or it'll say view options, or down at the bottom. I think they're different on different computers, but there's an area for view options, and then refer to the black menu bar at the bottom or the top of the screen, and then click the annotate button, and then select the stamp tool. And we're going to be using the heart stamp, and we're just going to use that to just because it's the easiest to read on a map. So you can, if you need to remove or stamp, if you need to fix or remove a stamp, you can use the eraser tool, and then you can click the mouse tool to get back to your normal mouse. So if you guys are able to do that, I'm going to go over to land on here's the final draft map for this area. And again, since it's just Mark and Carla, if you can either mark it on here, or you can speak up, and then we can talk about any specific areas that you guys want to talk about.
And please let us know if anyone has any trouble finding those options, and we can help you out.
This is Carla. I do not have those options. I'm on an iPad.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention that. This mapping exercise is best done on a desktop, just for the size of the map, and I think the annotate tool doesn't work quite as well. But we can just, if there's a specific area that you want to talk about, you can just call it out, and we'll point to it.
Okay, I promise not to talk when I'm off mute. Go down to Highway 49 when it crosses the river. And,
So I can't, I'm not sure if I can zoom in on this map.
okay, but you'll note you have blue on the south side. That would be the non-residential portions of Palisades, but you're missing the blue on the north side. We have existing commercial that would be a lovely walkable. We have a boat area, and we also have a restaurant.
Okay. And so can you see my mouse?
Yeah, take your mouse to the left edge of the blue.
Up here?
Yes, y'all call it South Tryon. If you live down here, you'd call it Highway 49.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so it looks like right now, so that's called out as a community activity center.
But you're on the south side. It needs to be on the north side, so it should spread all the way to the water.
Got it. Okay.
And cross the street.
Okay. That's noted.
And again, I've already made the comment about the big green blob known as McDowell Park is covering up people's single family homes.
Okay.
And I'll say with a smirk on my face, including the chief of police. So you probably don't want to call him a park.
Maria, if you'll use your mouse to locate what she's talking about, I can drop a stamp.
That's right.
Yeah, I think right where you dropped it is where she was talking about, right here.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And then go straight north of there, and you'll get the single family homes that have been omitted.
There.
Oh, right here on the street network right here. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I guess it's probably that whole street network, I would assume.
It's not really all of it, but the answer is yes. At the end of each street, there's houses, but on the sides of the street, there's not. That is actually parkland. But if you go to Polaris, it's pretty obvious.
Okay.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Mark, for that comment about the airport noise.
On the new UDO, there's you kind of revise the airport overlay, but it's still calling out the 65 decibel, and it's got height limits in it. So the top left up there where you have what we would all know it to be the outlet mall is very close to the noise contour 65 decibel. And that would be the perfect place to do things that aren't in one.
Okay. I'm sorry, can you point me in the area into that
Top,
area?
top green peak.
Top Green Peak, okay,
Yeah, somewhere up there. That
perfect.
you need to account for the noise contour 65 decibel.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
I have one other land use that appears to
Yes.
be. Okay, you just dropped a heart right directly below that is the red, and that is the small. Now follow your little arrow across what you call Still Creek that I call 160, and you have a large blob. You have a large blob of yellow. Neighborhood 1, which is bounded on the south by Sandy Porter. That's the left-right road.
Okay,
Bounded on the west by Steel Creek Road. That area should not be neighborhood 1. It's currently townhomes and apartments, 2 schools, and a large parcel being redeveloped for mixed use walkable. So it should either be a community activity or that's probably, I'm not real comfortable with regional versus community, but activity center of some
kind right there. And so is that the place where the heart is that right? Or is it on the?
No, you're correct.
That's
with
right.
That
Okay.
entire area, so you could blow up that heart, but that whole area has been planned very recently and is under construction as we speak. Oh, that's beautiful. Lots of arrows.
and just because I didn't hear what did you call this red area?
That's the outlet mall.
Oh, the outlet mall. Okay, yeah.
Is it Tanger or something?
Okay, got it.
Outlet mall.
Yeah, I think that's right. Okay, well, these are great comments.
I can keep going, Mark, unless you want to chime in. On the northwest side of the purple, which would be Westinghouse Boulevard. I'm gonna sit, you're on the east, keep going west. Northwest, perfect. It doesn't feel like you've gone far enough. Siemens Westinghouse is huge, and Siemens Westinghouse goes all the way to Shopton.
Okay.
I mean,
So
we're
you're thinking it should be that manufacturing should be extended a little more than that.
I do. I'm pretty visual, and I think it stops short.
Okay, we'll take a look at it and see.
Okay, and would you help me with the definition of campus?
Yeah, so campus is going to be have a certain size threshold, so it's going to be either oops, I'm sorry, did I lose place?
No, you're good. If you go back, as long as we don't clear the annotations, we're good.
Okay, thank you. Campus is going to be like a mix of buildings, either schools or like large office campuses. So if you think something is a smaller campus, there's usually like a size threshold for it to be actually mapped campus. So it's going to be like a cohesive group of buildings and public spaces, like either a school, hospital, or like a big office park.
Okay, well, I'm trying to describe it to you.
Mm-hmm.
You see where Carowinds, and then there's some parallel roads to Carowinds, which are called South Lake Business Park. And you have the one road coming out of that South Lake that just stops at the edge of purple. And it stops at the bottom, at the south.
At the south, okay.
Okay, so going to the left where you've got a kind of a notch in the yellow, that is a campus. It's SIM campus.
Okay.
It's a religious campus. It fronts on Choate, and I'm clicking on it to tell you how big it is. SIM USA. It's big. My Polaris isn't loving me.
Okay. We'll take a look at that. Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think the threshold is 50 acres, but I might have that wrong. If you know, Gretchen, if I'm wrong, or if you know that, you can speak up, but we'll take a look at that and see if that's one that we missed.
Yeah, I'm trying to search it real quick, but from memory, it's 50 because there's a lot of floodplain, and it's SIM is where missionaries are trained and set forth, and they come back when they need. And it's a theological school also.
Okay.
So it is a cluster of buildings that are there for a similar purpose, but they each have different uses. the best.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. Mark, if you have any comments, feel free to speak up, or Carla, if you have any more, feel free to keep going. We have 5 more minutes.
And when I come up with more, I've been posting comments on the page, on the
Great.
site.
Yes, yeah, we're tracking and documenting all the comments that are being put on that map. So yeah, that's the best place to do it.
Okay, can I ask
Yeah.
more clarifying, unless Mark wants to chime in? So you're listing everything. I've seen the slide before: live, work, play, it's boxes and rows. And then in the live, work, play, we know that in this activity center, there's also live,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
So when you said Steel Creek will only be 8% of housing, what does that mean?
Yeah, so that 8% includes any growth. As far as I'm aware, that 8% includes that projected place type, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, so some of those activity centers that you see here, those can include residential as well, because it'll be more of a mix of uses.
So when you did the math, it said we were only 13,000 some number, and we would only be 8% of new housing. That would include housing in these future activity centers.
Yes, yeah, not just neighborhood 1 or neighborhood 2.
Okay. Okay. I got to think about the overarching.
Yes, that's right, Julian. 8% of the city for housing.
I'll just reiterate my 2 comments, which is it drives me nuts when y'all don't put the city of Charlotte line on a map. I don't live in this.
So when we don't put the city of Charlotte line?
Yeah, you had
Okay.
one map that showed the dash and said this is city of Charlotte boundaries, but it never made a future map.
Okay.
And I'm very proud of the fact I don't live in the city. I don't get to vote.
Okay, yeah, we'll keep that in mind. Yeah,
okay.
That's true.
And the state law hadn't changed. They're gonna have trouble coming to get me. But it makes a difference when you get to the road types. And that I thought maybe we would talk about road types, but it makes a big difference. Those of us who live in the ETJ, what the state road requirements are and the city road requirements. So
Maria, if I can just jump in, that's a really good point, Carla. And thank you for making it and making the observation. From a technical perspective, we do zoning and land use in that area. That's why it's included in this map and not the line isn't designated. Thank you for making that observation.
yeah, and I'm looking at the top of your scale here, and it says City of Charlotte boundaries. See what I'm saying? It, and it's not showing. So, but speaking of good things, y'all did pick up a lot of the conservation easemented land, and that's not normally missed. So that was a good catch on y'all's part.
Great.
And since Mark is being mute, I don't have to be. And so if I want this presentation by PDF,
Yeah,
PowerPoint,
we can share it with you, and we'll also have this video that we'll be putting online later, but we can definitely share this with you.
okay. How do I get all the other areas?
So we'll have all of the areas posted online. I know we're gonna be posting all the videos online. So I'm guessing we'll be posting the presentations, but we can make sure we get them to you.
Videos are already up.
Okay.
The big one's up. What do you mean?
The videos are already
the
videos. Yeah, for the other areas. For the community
Yeah, as we go through the areas, we're making sure that we record it for anybody who is not able to attend. And so those are on our YouTube, and you'll get an email confirmation. But I will also quickly, Carla, paste the playlist link in the chat so that you have it now.
Thank you, because I can't stand to sit through YouTube's. I'm old, people.
That actually drummed up a question for me. I understand that the maps are going to be are at the libraries and the YMCA's. Is that just going to be a map of the whole county and stuff, or are they smaller maps? And I say that because the smaller maps are a lot easier. I know that's more difficult to do print, but just that's a question.
Yeah, so right now, they're gonna be at the libraries and the YMCA's. It's gonna be a full-size 36 by 48 map for both the streets map and the policy map. And then we have some hard copy surveys that people can include there. So that's the hard copy option that we have. Later in November, we might, we're thinking about doing some office hours. If people wanna come in and speak more one-on-one with us. We haven't finalized those plans, but we might be doing that in November. So if you want to kind of walk through one-on-one with someone and look on a map, because the best way to look at it is online, just because the size of the whole city, it's difficult to print all of the city at a readable scale. So that's something that we might be doing later on in November.
And I'll just reiterate, any way you can emphasize the vacant portions, I think helps too.
The vacant parcels.
Yes.
Yes, I concur with Mark.
Okay.
And I just saw one other thing.
Mhm.
And I did comment on the other map, but sometimes I wondered whether or not you were trying to say, I'm going to call this neighborhood 1 because the current use is inappropriate. And so there's a very specific dog show. That's all I know to call it. I'm not a dog person. A dog show facility on Choate Circle. So about where the blue ends, if you go from the CAR and Carowinds and you follow Highway 49, AKA South Tryon, AKA York Road South, you get to the blue. It's like adjacent to that blue, and it's got a special, no, we went too far. First, just when you get to the blue, it's got an existing special use permit, and they run like, Westminster dog show, puppy things. Okay. And it's really, it's very big.
Okay.
I'm going to get 15 acres, just guessing. And it's existing special use permit. So I wondered why it didn't show, but it does not front on South Tryon, aka 49. It fronts on Choate Circle.
Okay. So from what you can tell, it looks like it's mapped neighborhood 1 or
it is mapped neighborhood 1. It isn't mapped neighborhood 1. Question. And then there's a private athletica field across from it, and y'all mapped it neighborhood 1. And I'm thinking, why didn't you map it parks?
If it was a field, and if it was of a certain size, it probably just got absorbed into that neighborhood 1. And for the special use permit place, I'm not sure, but that might be one other piece that we need to look at in the overall approach is the special use permits.
Yeah, because I didn't know what classification to put that in, but it occurred to me, the poor guy would not be allowed. Of course, he's got a special use permit. He would be grandfathered, but he would not be allowed in neighborhood 1 because of his use.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
And Carla, I did drop the link just to the YouTube playlist. I know that you said YouTube isn't your favorite, but until we can get those PDFs to you, you can fast forward through them so you don't have to sit through it and look at the maps, because we did record like big screen like Maria has now.
Thank you. I'm currently reading 608 pages, the Ayn Rand of UDO, so my time's a little constrained. But thank you.
We'll work on getting those PDFs to you as well. I think that they will, at least at the close of our meetings, I think we will be putting them on our resources page as we normally do, but I'll work on seeing when we can get those to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, Maddie or Gretchen, did you get a screenshot of this?
Yep, I got a screenshot.
Great.
Thank you so much for your comments, guys.
All right, so again, we'll be having these conversations throughout the community from now until November 10th. As we mentioned, all sessions are recorded and available. There's some makeup sessions scheduled throughout phase 2. Those usually occur on the weekends, and they usually combine a few of the community planning areas that we did throughout the week. And then, like I said, in-person office hours contingent upon COVID might be happening later in November. And again, the online comment application is the best way to look at the map. And we mentioned the maps and surveys at the libraries and YMCA's. And we'll be taking all the feedback that you guys have given us to identify citywide revisions to the policy map. And then so that the second draft of the policy map will be expected in early 2022. But with that, thank you guys for coming, and thank you for all your great feedback. We really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
Good
so
night,
much,
everybody.
guys.